So, good afternoon, Jan.
Yeah, Good Friday, Bruce.
Yeah, nice to hear you again. It's been uh, it's been a little while since we actually talked.
hmm A week, and I've done a lot of garden work, and I've decided to not produce the new book yet, because we will also have a renovation of the house in July, earlier than we expected, and
Hmm.
I think it's better to do the production after that, so it
Yeah, that
doesn't
gives
have
us
to.
more time to go through and do some editing anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, well, today we wanted to talk about some of the characters in Oera Linda. When we saw each other a few weeks ago, we talked about Minerva and how she seems to be the starting point for a lot of people who become interested in Oera Linda,
hmm
because she's one of those characters that really uh, ties together the histories of different people. Minerva in the Oera Linda as the folksmother figure. I guess she wasn't a folksmother, but she was a mother of the people. And then the Romans have a goddess with the same attributes with the owl and the basket of eggs, I think, and the hounds, which they also call Minerva.
hmm
And then the Greeks have Athena, who also shares the same attributes.
Yeah.
But they're considered gods in those cultures. And in the Oera Linda, she's a character in the book and not considered divine, because Varalda is the only god in Oera Linda.
hmm
And the video that I made yesterday that you're showing on screen there it just kind of talks about how hard it is once you start trying to follow the threads in the Oera Linda, you run up against the different narratives from different cultures and the official histories. And a lot of the people who are characters in the Oera Linda end up being given divine features in other cultures. And the book itself explains that that's a way to control people's thinking and behavior.
hmm
And so I did a 5-minute video on that topic yesterday. I talked about Sirhet, who is Kelta, from which perhaps the name of the Celts comes, and she's also shares a name with the Sirens, who lead the seafarers to their doom, and as well as a Celtic goddess called Sirona,
hmm
who also is pictured with Snake and the eggs and the chalice. And in the story, she mixes up potions and does magic, and so there's just so many threads that you can follow once you try to pin down the historical or narrative proof of these people or evidence of their stories.
Yeah, I didn't know about the Celtic goddess, and I didn't really study mythology that well to see all these parallels. But last time we also noticed that Freya is similar to Rhea and Cybele.
And
Because
Gaia.
yeah, they are always depicted with often with two lions or two cats.
Correct.
There's some more similarities.
Yeah, it's just
And
one after the other. You can get lost in trying to figure out who's who or who is maybe represented by whom, and
mhm,
and with the ultimate goal for me of trying to figure out who came first.
yeah. Um, and what I also noticed when I often look at the Rijksmuseum website for visual, for paintings or pictures.
Mhm.
And from the 17th century mostly, there's a lot of etches with personifications um, for example, of virtues or personification of time
Mhm.
or of truth, things like that. And it can easily be interpreted as goddess or goddesses. gods or goddesses. But just like in Oera Linda, there's many times they use personifications, like pride walked out of the door, and love sat on at the table next to envy, for example, things like that. And in Christian times, many of these personifications may have been interpreted as gods or goddesses. While in fact they do not have to really have been considered like that. Of course, we do have these votive stones for Nealenia and some of the others with Roman inscriptions, by the way. So they may
so
not have.
We end up meeting the same people with Roman inscriptions, and the question is, maybe it's a similar question that people have with Jesus. Was there a historical Jesus? The Christians will ask themselves these things, or was it just a character in a book? And there's plenty of archaeological evidence in all different directions. And here, I guess the idea is, was there really somebody named Minerva, or is this a historical person, or indeed was, there's also the possibility that this is all a hoax, and that the people who wrote this book they knew every single god and goddess in every culture, and happened to get their names exactly right, and kind of give them a Frisian spelling. The six, you're showing something right now with 6 spokes, right?
Yeah. I hope I didn't interrupt you with that.
No, but that you're making the point that I'm making, so that if this really was a hoax, the people who perpetrated the hoax were super geniuses and knew everything about history. Because I assume a lot of these stones, like the one that you're showing right now, were probably not common knowledge to people back in the 1700s.
Well, this one was found in 1883.
Right.
So it was after Oera Linda became famous.
After it was actually, yeah.
And of course you can say, oh, well, it's only it's a flower of life or a 6-spoke wheel. And this is by a Frisian in England. Frisiorum, Cunae Frisiorum. I didn't translate the text. It's here. Oh yeah, translation. To the god Mars and to Aleithiagae and to the divinity of the emperor. They had to do that, of course. The Germans being tribesmen of Twente, of the Cuniers of Frisians, of Vercovicium.
The way that I even, I didn't intend to make a video about the topic that I did yesterday. I was actually looking up the history of Mainz, the city down here in Rheinland-Pfalz on the Rhine, of Mainz, which, for example, part of their coat of arms are 2 6-spoked wheels.
Oh yeah.
And the Roman name for Mainz is, I don't know if I can pronounce it correctly, Mogontiacum or Mogontiacum or something. Yeah, there it is.
Mogontiacum.
Mogontiacum, and I couldn't help but seeing a Magyar in there, right? The Mogon, so the city of the great magus seems like it could have something to do with that anyway. And that just kept leading me down different paths and rabbit holes until I ended up making a video about how hard it is because of all the rabbit holes.
Yeah. You had found a golden wheel, an 8-spoke wheel?
No, it was a 6-spoked wheel. With a moon and a golden crown, so like a yin-yang kind of a thing, made out of the 6-spoked wheel. And my question was, is that some kind of a bastardization of a symbol that existed previous to the coming to the west of the Magyars and the people who ended up turning the culture of the Oera Linda of the Frias into a patriarchal, king-centered society. And taking the six-book wheel and superimposing this idea of duality and kingship upon it. I don't have that. I can't share that picture right now. But
no, it's on the Telegram, but I will not open it.
Yeah.
Because there's maybe private things as well.
Yeah, but that's what led me to make the video, just the difficulty in trying to pin down a starting point for any kind of a narrative that examines the stories of the Oera Linda. You immediately run into an interpretation, like you said, that we're going to take this and superimpose Roman culture or Greek culture,
well, I have had so many of these little aha moments. Like this one with the wheel. There's so many of them. There's not one very big fact or detail, one big thing that I can say, well, this is the proof.
Yeah.
But so many things combined that lead to certainty for myself, at least.
Well, in itself, that leads me to question the possibility that it could be a hoax, because how much would these three men have to have known about the mythology of not only this part of Northern Europe, but the Mediterranean region into what we call the Middle East, and even into the Indian subcontinent. It's unreasonable for me to imagine that people who were not historians, or and even if they were, it's a specialized field usually. How would these three fellows have known so much about the etymology of things to make everything just fit?
Yeah, and then for the statement, the theological idea, that's the mainstream theory. And after having done so much work, even if they didn't want to reveal themselves by life, then at least they would have done it after posthumously. I've spoken about this earlier. I will not repeat it.
Yeah.
Let's leave the subject of the authenticity for now, because we've talked about it a lot earlier.
Yeah. Did you? That was the video that I made yesterday. We had originally thought about talking about Minerva in this video, but I don't know. Have you prepared anything that you'd like to talk about?
No, not really.
We have the news about the book not being published. Originally, we wanted to bring it out a little bit earlier, but you did want to share something about a change at the wiki.
Yeah. The font, the Standskrift, the Frisia Standskrift font has now been implemented on the website. Okay.
So there's a drop-down window to switch between the transcription and the transliteration, so to speak.
Yeah. What's called Latin is the normal capitals that we use thus far. And then there's also the Mogontiacum, which is like a sort of experiment, a sort of reconstruction. Somewhere in between the normal Roman inscriptions, with some typically Frias letters, like the TH and the long E.
Okay.
So for people who like that.
And if you switch to the Standskrift,
this is the normal handwriting,
the TH letter,
as it is in the is in the manuscript, and how it will appear in the 5th edition.
This is the script that we'll be using for the original text and the edition that's coming out.
Yeah, so then it will be a transcription, no longer a transliteration. And last time I also spoke about the design of the cover, and at this stage I'm no longer sure if I really want to do it like that, or if I do want to make it a photo on the whole cover. But now we have some more time to think about it.
Yeah, now you have some more time to think about it. Maybe we can talk about it too. I mean, I do like the idea of a more sober cover,
Mhm.
but yeah, it's a hard decision to make.
Yeah, with the two lions, it is a nice idea, but it must really be good design.
Yeah.
And the problem with using the goddess that I had last time, there were some other symbols on it that don't typically belong to Freya.
Hmm.
So best would be a new design. And I thought of asking an illustrator, but well, now we have some more time for that. So
Okay.
it's some weight off my back, and so I can focus on the work in the house. And
Okay, so that's news on the wiki. So anybody interested in learning the Standskrift has a much easier time now, because you can just switch back and forth between that which you're used to reading and the original script.
all the pages, like the volunteer, and they really did a lot of work changing all these pages. And all they have now, the original script.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great. Have you?
Oh, a little detail about this. People who downloaded this earlier, a few days ago, it was updated so that the letter I, is not too close to other letters. I don't know if it is changed here as well.
So you can download a new version.
Yeah,
I
from
should do that too.
from the web shop at least. I'm not sure if it's on the wiki already as well, but here it is at least.
Have you been able to track traffic on the wiki? Has it been picking up at all?
I haven't watched the statistics yet. No.
Yeah, well, hopefully, one of the goals of this Friday call is to get people engaged in the resources that you've made available. So hopefully people will start to really take advantage of that.
Yeah, this time we'll do a short one also because there's not much more news. This may be an interesting website for people to have a look.
Okay.
I only discovered it yesterday or today. I had an earlier version of this before. Oh yeah, because here Deae Aufaniae.
Yeah.
I wondered if that's actually also Anfang.
Yeah. And Deae, I guess, would mean the god of, or
well, the goddesses.
It's the goddesses of the beginning, or the god of the beginning.
Aufania. I wouldn't know what it means otherwise.
It certainly comes close to Anfang, right? And that's something we discussed recently. The Anfang and het begin, meaning the beginning and the beginning, the very beginning, and the beginning of creation.
Yeah, and when I search for this, you always also get the Matrones Aufaniae.
The mother of the beginning.
So that's actually more common. Matronae, the mothers of whatever Aufana was.
Yeah, a lot of these stones, votive stones, they seem to come from a period of transition between the old Frias world model and the Roman interpretation of it.
Could be, I don't know, and I also don't know what if this was hair, these big balls on their head, probably.
Yeah, that's a very. Can you zoom in on that a little bit so we can see what?
Okay.
I can't see the.
I don't know. Looks
like they're wearing big funny hats, or you think they got big bushy hair. I don't know. My first assumption would be that those are some kind of a halo.
Oh yeah. I don't know. Well, maybe
yeah,
next time.
It's hard, but maybe some Latin scholars can help us out with that.
I'll close this as one little thing I found. Also, is here. I have the document. Where is it? Here. From archaeology, and this is actually a village very close to where I was born, Oosterleek, on the IJsselmeer.
Okay.
At my pointer.
This is where it was found.
Yeah. Here is this little church, yeah, with a cemetery and a dike here. See, it's very close to the dike. And then they found here, when they were renovating the dike, they found an old graveyard. And these three images, I have them here bigger.
And do you know like what area that would correspond to in the Oera Linda narrative? Like what burg would have been near there?
Not well. It is in between the burgs Medeersblik and the Waraburg, the treasure
Between the
burg.
Waraburg and Medeersblik.
Yeah. Because also here, this is where Medemblik is now, but in the time of Oera Linda, it may have been more on what is now water.
Underwater.
And Waraburg could have been somewhere here. Because it's half an hour below Medeersblik, and it would have been a stream to a big lake, and then a canal to the sea. And the Forana, somewhere here.
So quite close to where they entered into the Flea Lake, is that right?
This was a flea lake, much smaller than. This was This is the North Sea. But these images are from this oldest reconstruction is from the 13th century. The 12th century, end of the 12th century. So this dark brown was the dike, and then this was the old church. Then at some point they built a new dike here, and this land was gradually lost.
Further back, yeah.
And they built a new church here, and then at some point they built a new dike here, and they moved the church from here to here.
I see.
And this white church, this is where they found the graveyard, the old graveyard. But it only shows how much land was gradually lost, and not all that long ago.
Yeah. I mean, that's the main area where there's a story in the Oera Linda where they lost a lot of land in that area, right? Near Forana.
Yeah, in the time of Frederik, I think. 300.
The later, yeah.
Shortly before the fleet of Alexander came back, there was a lot of land was lost and a lot of lakes. There had become a lot of lakes here, and they had lost a lot of land northward of Texel. That was also when the main burgs were all lost, except the one on Texel.
So it's an ongoing battle against the sea.
Yeah, it is of later, but it shows when this has happened here. This was Oosterleek. Then it will also have happened here and also in Friesland. Staveren.
That's Staveren, okay. And then down there, a little bit down there, the bottom of the page, those are polders, is that right? That's kind of newly created land. There to the right.
This is a big polder, and this one, also here, and many of the lakes, most of the lakes here, also have been become land, have been made land.
Dry. Yeah. So the Flea Lake looked way different than the what we have nowadays there in that area.
Well, these are polders in what used to be the Zuiderzee, because first in the 30s they made this big dike, then it turned sweetwater. But it is known that the Zuiderzee has not always been this big. It has been much smaller.
Yeah.
And in the around the year 1000, it may have been a small lake with a stream. And this may mostly have been marshland or small boot.
Right. So it really complicates things that the landscape of what we call the Netherlands now and Friesland, it's just constantly changing.
Yeah. And like last time we showed at the find of the old city here in in northern Germany or northern Friesland.
Right, we talked about that.
But there will be so much to be found under the sand here. If at some point they start looking for it.
Yeah, but right now I was thinking about, what's the most sensible way to go about figuring out what's what, figuring out what is true historical narrative. And it may be, obviously archaeology and digging is going to be part of it, but, since the sea is unforgiving, we don't know how much of that stuff, how far things are out in the water now. And it seems to be more of like an epidemiological work, how doctors will take different studies and put them together and then try to figure out something about a certain disease,
Yeah.
And it seems like taking the historical narrative and the existing archaeologies and seeing if we can find some kind of a common thread that could be interpreted without placing it in a Roman context,
Yeah.
and just trying to figure out what other interpretation is possible, an interpretatio Frisiae.
Yeah, I still think the language is also a great way to validate authenticity.
Yeah, it's the most obvious one.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the work that is before us to really to take all the sources that we can find, put together, and figure out where did the people of Northern Europe really come from. I saw something the other day when I was in on Texel a few weeks ago. There was some sort of museum exhibit about the early hunter-gatherers of Northern Europe. And of course, they looked like, they had them looking like monkeys.
Yeah.
They all had brown eyes, of course, and dark hair. And then you have to wonder how does someone take themselves seriously? Just leaving out the obvious fact that people in Northern Europe don't look like that.
Yeah, I've been a volunteer in a little museum, and this little museum wanted to become a real museum, like a member of the Society of Musea in the Netherlands. And then there was a whole list of things that they had to comply to, like having toilets for handicapped people, but also the museum should be inclusive, which means that in the images you show of people, there must always be brown and black people or people from anywhere, everywhere, and demands like that. So this is one of the things they force musea to add things like that, even if it's not really so historical or so.
Yeah, and it's completely unproven. It's just the Oera Linda, you can call it a hoax, but it exists, but the evidence that some monkey-looking guys were hunter-gatherers in Doggerland before it sank. There's no evidence of that. They literally just made it up.
Yeah. No, and it has a political purpose, of course.
Yeah.
But this is a whole different discussion.
Yeah. The politics of it all is definitely an aspect that I'd like to avoid in general, but it certainly is another complicating factor. But so we're going to keep doing these Friday calls, and I'll keep making videos as well as I can. I'm not very good at it yet, but hopefully I'll get to the point where
practice makes perfect.
Practice makes perfect, so they say.
I also found a lot of old videos when I was looking on my old hard disk, and I was surprised to see one of them where my whole house was not renovated yet in the garden, and I was in a moment of enthusiasm. I made it public on the YouTube channel, and that's always that's a dilemma that I have. Because I didn't want to become I didn't want this to become some sort of cult of personality, but at the other hand, it's sometimes good to show some personal things as well, so that people know that you are an actual person, actual
Right.
living being. And also, I've told things about having children, which explains that I'm not always full-time available for this project.
Yeah, well, you've put in your time, right? You've paid your dues, I would say.
Yeah. Sometimes
For
I
other
may
people to
share
pick up the
some more
gauntlet
personal
and
things,
help out a bit.
or old videos from when I first started with this, or compilation perhaps. But most of it I have hidden. So
Well, yeah, that's normal. But for you were kind of before your time. You've been making these videos for years, and there just wasn't that much interest in the Oera Linda. But if the YouTube analytics are any indication, then it seems to be really picking up. People are starting to be interested in this. I've found channels that are dedicated to Frisian history that don't talk about the Oera Linda at all. But it's at some point it's going to be a stumbling block for anybody looking at the Frisian history. They're going to have to, just like we have to deal with Roman and Greek interpretations while looking at this. They're going to have to at some point, academics and
they will get ever more questions from people who want to know.
Yeah. That's exactly right. I think it's a lot like. So there's a bit of a political work there, kind of a journalistic bent where people start asking academics questions about what about this, and how do you explain that linguistically as well as archaeologically, and maybe one day we or our descendants will have a preponderance of evidence to show that Europeans didn't just develop from people that are nothing like them and don't look anything like them.
Yeah, but I realized when I was working in the garden, I thought about how our ancient history, we didn't just forget it, but it was really taken away from us. As is explained in the first two letters, they try to obliterate everything that comes from our ancestors, and we know that the Christianization process was done with destroying an older culture that was before it.
Right, it was all done with malice.
Yeah.
So I would end on this one thing, because you kind of bring to mind when I was looking into Nihilenia. I don't have the right pronunciation for the Latin pronunciation anyway. But so there's these votive stones to Nihilenia, which is another epithet for Minerva.
Yeah.
And and we say in the Frias that Nihilenia means the new light of wisdom or something, right?
Yeah, lending new
lending, right? Yeah. Lending new light and in the sense of knowledge and wisdom. And on the Wikipedia entry, though, they give it exactly an opposite definition. They say it probably comes from Nevel.
Oh yeah.
So that it would mean something like she who dwells in the mists, and really just the opposite meaning. And then they say that the dog, which she says symbolizes her shepherd, shepherdship over the people. They say that shows that she's a goddess of the underworld.
Yeah. I saw in a
they really
Dutch
take
lecture.
it and they twist it and turn it exactly on its head.
Yeah, in a Dutch video I saw someone say it is a perfect Celtic name, and that reminds me of when I was in Germany. When I lived in Germany, I noticed that many of these archaeological parks, they always refer to the people as Celtic, and never Germanic.
No, never.
But that was, of course, that used to be the term before, perhaps until the 50s or so.
Yeah, it's hard to say, exactly when this war on the culture of Northern Europe started, but according to the Oera Linda, it's been basically going on for 4,000 years, and we're right in the middle of it, I guess. That's what people have to come to realize, that their history is being obscured from them by through these mainstream narratives of Rome and Greece and all of these things, and anywhere but Northern Europe seems to be a seat of civilization.
Yeah, yeah, and particularly bad are the websites with which explain baby names.
Yeah,
etymology of children's names.
Right.
Almost always they suggest that the names are originally Hebrew. And it's really it's hilarious. It's got nothing to do with etymology. Some of them maybe perhaps be correct, but many of them are not. And it's a bit suspicious as well.
It seems they like to start the narrative wherever it suits. But asking what came before that is quite a problem, and providing possible answers to what came before that is even a bigger problem. But that's what we're here for, throwing a wrench in the works.
Yeah, I have an idea for next time.
Yes.
Why don't we do a little experiment with live stream?
Okay.
Before we do a real one. We'll just do one privately, and we can also give audience the possibility to ask questions before we start.
Oh yeah.
There's on the YouTube there's a function of community, I think, and I will post as soon as we know the time when we're going to record it. Oh yeah, here, community. I will make a post. And also invite the few people who see it in time to ask questions. So if you hear this somewhere during the week and you want to ask some things, then next Friday there will be a post here, and I suggest you post your questions here somewhere.
Okay, yeah, you can post your questions there or in the comment section below this video.
Yeah.
And so you're saying we'll do the next call live and have a live chat going on at the same time.
Let's try that, yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay, then for now I think it's enough.
All right, then thanks for your time, Jan, and I will talk to you live next week.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce.